Greetings, Earthlings. Today I'm going to be doing something a bit different. A couple weeks ago I received a comment on one of my posts by Mr. Centurion asking to give an analysis on his deck that he titled Vorel the Younger. So I figured, sure, sounds like fun. I played a lot of that Ravnica block and have PTSD flashbacks from this Ocean Dweller, but I'm sure it can't be too bad, right? Well, let's introduce good old Vorel of the Hull Clade. For one, a blue and a green, we got ourselves a 1/4 human merfolk, which, would he breathe air or water? I don't know. With the ability where, for 2 and a tap, you double the amount of any type of counter on your artifacts, creatures, or lands. So let's dive into this deck and see what Centurion has for us. Now, to preface this video, first off is I'm not going to claim to be like the best deck builder. I like to build just for fun and synergy and just casual stuff. But he asked me for an analysis on his deck, so I figured, yeah, why not? Like, who am I to say no, right? And to preface it a bit more, he's made it clear, as you can see here, that he deliberately built this to have no real ramp or high power shenanigans, so this is as casual as can be, which I love, especially for a commander like this who was just the boogeyman back in the day. Now from here in, I'll be addressing Centurion directly, and you guys can be along for the ride. So hi! The fact that you're running a 3 CMC commander means that not running fast mana is neither here nor there, because even with 1 mana dork or rock, you can cast him ahead of curve. Let's see, you've got 25 creatures, 6 sorceries, 14 instants, 10 artifacts, 5 enchantments, and 39 lands, which the land count might be a bit high for your curve, but we'll see once we dive into the deck a bit more. Let's see, we'll go up a bit here. Can I change this view option? Visual grid, visual spoiler? Will that give me the full? There we go. Okay. So, okay, I definitely love the fact that you run staples like Forgotten Ancient and Mindless Automaton for this type of strategy. They accrue so much value. I've never even heard of Elusive Otter, and that's super adorable. Stormcrow for the meme is always appreciated, even if it doesn't always make sense. Where do we go? Graft. I love Graft. It's a super underrated ability, and the fact that you can bolster the counters on the Graft permanent to be able to move over is always strong. I'm not sure about Storm Surge Kraken, as I personally wouldn't be attacking with Vorel too much. I'd rather keep him back as my value engine, try to protect him instead of like running him into opponent's creatures. As a 1/4, you're not really going to want to be putting him in combat too much. The Spikes, Feeder, and Weaver are always good and useful. Stonecoil Serpent is great. No matter what state of the game you're in, you can either cast him early and let him get bigger over time, or you can just dump a huge amount of mana into him later on. Triskelion. I remember Triskelion, the old walking ballista. You're skimming the combo line, but refuse to step over it, and I respect that. I could definitely see why you'd want to run Trigon Predator. Remove a lot of flying bodies, always super strong. Venom Thorpe, keyword soup. I love that. Let's see. You got a pretty good sorcery pool here. I like all of those. Wave Goodbye is pretty funny. Your instance package is also pretty solid. Slip out the back, awesome, especially in a wave like this. A wave? Yeah, we'll just call it that. In a wave like this, Inspiring Call has saved me on so many occasions. I still do kind of play a +1/+1 counters matters deck. I played it during the cons block. I played the Abzan counters, and then unfortunately, up until like now, Black hasn't gotten much +1/+1 counter support. That really coincides well with the rest of them, so I kind of cut that. I'm not overly savvy on simic counters, but I've played against it enough that it stayed with me. Let's see. I don't love all these artifacts, but we'll get to that in a minute. The enchantments are good for not running the expensive staples like Doubling Season or the Ozolith. Branching Evolutions, wow, that went down a lot in price. I'm really happy about that. And now, yeah, for the lands, in my opinion, 39's too much. You probably get flooded a bit. Personally, for your curve, because you're running a 3-mana commander, let's see, let's scroll down. Let's scroll all the way down. Yeah, your curve, most of it's at 3. Yeah, I would cut that down to 36 or 37, to be honest. You don't need that many lands. With your mana costs, everything's decently cheap. Okay, so back up here. Some creatures that stood out to me that could either be cut altogether or replaced by something better. And by better, I mainly just mean a card that can provide a similar purpose at maybe a cheaper rate or for all your creatures. First one that stands out to me is Suspicious Stowaway. Being unblockable is good, and being able to draw cards on hit can be helpful. I don't know if you'd want to loot in a deck like this because you're not really running Grave Recursion. I'd personally cut him for something like Herald of Secret Streams, which I did notice you run in your other build like this, so you know how good of a card it is. If you're wanting a way to keep drawing cards upon player damage, then you can run something like Reconnaissance Mission or the Indomitable that gives all your creatures that abilities without having to discard. Another one I would cut, simply for a better version of the card, is Tuskguard Captain in favor of Duskshell Crawler, because it also provides a counter upon entering the battlefield and gives your whole field trampled, just like Tuskguard Captain is. And it costs 1 mana cheaper, and in my opinion, the Outlast ability, not good. I don't like it. If you're wanting more unblockable redundancy, my gold standard for any Counters Matters decks is Champion of Lambholt, because she gets huge super fast, and Vorel just makes her skyrocket. Vorel, whatever. I like Cold-Eyed Selkie. I wouldn't cut that. You're not always going to be against players who control islands, and blue players can get it out of there before you get to hit with it, but it's still it's still not a bad card. Chromehost Sea Shark is awesome, pure value. Same with Elusive Otter. The prowess is neither here nor there, but being an unblockable Titan is awesome. Master Biomancer gives me PTSD, so keep that. For Graft, on top of that creature, I did notice you run Llanowar Reborn, which is awesome. I would also run Oran Reef the Vastwood. It only benefits your green creatures, but the grand majority of your creatures, from what I'm seeing, are green. Slippery Bogbender is awesome protection on a body. And the Goose Mother is just super funny. I love that. As good keyword soup as Venomthrope is, I don't know if I love it in this type of build, but I can see why you'd want to put counters on that type of body. I know you said you purposely use slow mana, but I would consider Gyre Sage as something to pump into some of those X spells you have, because you want to be able to pump as much into those as possible, right? And because I suggested cutting Suspicious Stowaway, another body that can draw you cards without even having to do anything is the standard All-Star Fathom Mage. It just sits there. You put counters on it, you draw cards. Awesome. Some other cards that are my personal favorites for this type of strategy are Mowu, Loyal Companion, and Loyal Guardian, who bolsters your whole field if you have your commander out, which you're running a decent amount of protection. You know, you can just kind of sit him in the back and just keep accruing value, which is awesome. I also noticed, and this is something a lot of people who play +1/+1 counter decks run into, is you're not running a lot of Proliferate. So I understand most people run Proliferate for like Infect and stuff like that, but for this I'm getting a little passionate here. For this, it's super helpful to bolster more your counters, right? You can choose any amount of counters. It doesn't have to be all of them or none of them. So I would very much recommend something like Evolution Sage, which can bolster for your land drops. Inexorable Tide proliferates anytime you cast anything, and Karn's Bastion is an awesome and underrated land for that type of effect. For another creature that you can run that I would recommend is from the new Fallout decks is Cathedral Acolyte. It gives all your creatures that have counters on them Ward 1. It doesn't even matter what kind of counters they are, so I think that's a pretty good value on a body. In terms of instants and sorceries, I think all of that looks good. Some of my personal favorites for this type of strategy are Teferi's Time Twist and Planar Incision. In terms of your artifacts, I like Anduril. I like Fractal Harness. Gavel and Bestiary are always good. Sure Strike is just wow. Yeah, that can be super handy. I've never even heard of that card. I like that a lot. I don't see the use in Scepter Celebration other than the trample. If you're running things that already give trample to your board, like Duskshell Crawler or Tuskguard Captain or either, then aside from making tokens, I really just don't see a use for it. If you're willing to pick the pocket a bit, I'm more of a fan of Sword of Truth and Justice, because giving counters and proliferating. Tarian Soul Cleaver is good. I've been hearing a lot about that card. I just have yet to actually play it myself. I could see the appeal of Winged Boots, but the OG Swifties are easier to cast, and I'll always favor Hexproof over Ward. To me, Ward is just Hexproof with extra steps, to be honest. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but your enchantments look good. I like all of that. Only one I would recommend is Hardened Scales if you're not wanting to go crazy with the big money cards. It's kind of like a diet branching evolution. It's 1 mana, you get an extra counter whenever you put them on. For your lands, yeah, you don't need much fixing or ramp, as your commander costs 3. If you ran Gyre Sage or even Incubation Druid, you can bolster the amount of mana they produce with Vorel. Crawling Barrens is pretty funny. I love the concept of man lands that can hit out of nowhere. Drannith Runes is very good for your non-humans, so anything not named Vorel. Rogue's Passage, very good. I originally wanted to recommend Access Tunnel, but your creatures are going to be massive, so you're good not running that at all. I'd probably run the Evolving Wilds type cycle of lands to thin the deck of lands as you go, but if you cut about 2 or 3 ramps, that can help the rate. Okay, my personal analysis, I love this type of build. As I mentioned, I played a lot of Ravnica, or that block, and fell victim to that commander quite often, even in Standard. But it seems super fun. I would love to see it in action at some point and how it runs. I love seeing builds without commander staples or any super strong I win conditions, because those can, right? Those can get kind of stale after a while. But yeah, like, I hope you like my analysis on this. Feel free to share it with whomever you think might find this useful. And yeah, anyone who's watching this video, if you'd like me to do something similar with your commander decks, feel free. As I said at the beginning of the video, I don't consider myself an expert deck builder by any means, but like, this is super fun. I love seeing other people's decks. I love seeing unorthodox stuff. I love seeing things that other people can run. I did notice in your other build like this that you ran Colonian Hydra, which I love that card. It's super disgusting, so I don't even need to tell you about that card. But yeah, I like the deck. Outside of what I mentioned, I really wouldn't change anything about it. It seems like a super fun and intuitive and synergistic build. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this type of video, feel free to rap that like button and tap that subscribe button. And yeah, practice safe gameplay. And without further ado, I bid thee farewell and good fortune.